What's up, everybody? It's Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net, and welcome to part 2 of our tactical analysis breakdown of Daniil Medvedev's game. To find out what makes his game so unique, stay tuned because it's coming up next. One thing that makes Medvedev so tough to beat is the fact that he's making his opponents work a lot harder to hold their service games than he is to hold his own serve. So let's look at some of the stats that show how hard he's making some of his opponents work. Another thing that I like to look at to see who's working harder in a match is something I like to call serve impressions. Basically, it's a combination of everything you had to do on your own service games combined into one larger stat. So Thiem had 2,025 serve impressions in his match with Medvedev, and Medvedev had 1,698. So basically, Thiem's working a lot harder to hold his service games than Medvedev is. If we look at the ace count, Medvedev had 12 aces to Thiem's 6 aces. So were those stats different against Nadal? They were actually skewed even more towards Medvedev. So if we look at the total serve impressions against Nadal, Nadal had 2,130, while Medvedev had 1,244. In that match as well, Medvedev had 14 aces compared to Nadal's 3. And if we look at the total number of serves hit, Nadal hit 115 serves and Medvedev hit just 80. All right, so let's jump into some points that show you exactly why it's so tough to hold serve against Medvedev. And again, one thing we pointed out early on is that he's 6'6". So we've got Medvedev here on the near side returning and Thiem on the far side serving. And that 6'6" height comes in handy a lot. Okay, so let's look at this first point here real quick. Thiem with an excellent serve down the tee. And having that height and having that reach here, being 6'6", helps tremendously from this position, okay? So he's on the full stretch like this, and he's got a contact point that's late. And we talked about in part 1 of this series how good he is from these poor contact points and how he's able to still achieve depth when a lot of players can't. But if you add that on top of the fact that being this tall means a serve this good or a quality of serve this good isn't going to be as effective against somebody who's 6'6" and can reach out there to grab that ball, okay, versus a shorter player. So let's see what happens on this return here. And he hits a pretty poor return in this situation, right? So Thiem hit an excellent serve, and Thiem has all day to get around this ball and really load up his legs, which we talked about in part 1, right? We talked about loading the body to get ready to attack. One thing we're going to talk about here as well, besides the return real quick, is Medvedev's anticipation skills and how he guesses really well as to where opponents are going, and he reads situations well. So look at Thiem here, right? Loading up his body, but look at what Medvedev's doing. Medvedev's down here, and he's already going to his left before Thiem makes contact with the ball. And this is something just movement-wise, anybody can do this and anybody can learn how to do this, is basically pick your spot before they hit the ball. And you want to do this a lot of times in situations where you don't really have a great chance to win the point unless you do pick a side. So that's exactly what Medvedev's doing. He's already moved this way, right? He's already moved from this position here. He's moved 16 and a half feet roughly. And right before contact, he's now moved 19 and a half feet. He moved 3 feet to his left before Thiem ever contacted the ball. Let's see what happens. Just incredible. Look at Medvedev move out to the ball. Keep in mind, he's 6'6". But in this position, right, he does an amazing and incredible job of getting his body down, dropping his hips down, and getting his hands down like this to maintain good balance, where for most players, they'd be falling over themselves trying to reach out to this ball. But the combination of his ability to get down, even from a really tall height, and then also the ability to control his hands and reach like this, it's incredible. Look at this. And then he's able to hit this small target winner, which is a great shot. So again, just from here, comes out, excellent balance, drops the hips, maintains balance, and uses his hands here to just guide this along. Just go back for a second right before contact here. Look at the hands. Just look at the hands. They kind of poke. His racket face actually finishes open because he's using the hands to manipulate the racket face and manipulate the ball just to get it to where he wants it to go. You wouldn't typically tell a student to finish like this, but he's doing that to poke the ball into the direction and area that he needs it to go on that shot. And then he hits an incredible small target winner. If we look at Thiem's reaction, right? He's over here clapping like this because such an incredible shot from such a tough position. All right, so just moving on to the next point. Now we've got Nadal serving on the near side and Medvedev returning on the far side, starting in that zone 5 position, kind of going neutral. Nadal here with a really, really, really well-placed serve. This is something not a lot of players can do, but Nadal can do this really well. He's hitting a serve that lands in the deuce box here, right, on this side, but Medvedev's contact point is actually on the ad side of the court over here, all right? Nadal's serve has so much spin and it's going away from Medvedev that Medvedev's contact is actually on the opposite side of the court. This is extremely difficult to do and is a very, very well-placed serve. So you would think because that serve is so well-placed and Medvedev is having to reach this far over, that his return quality would be really poor. But from these positions, and because he's so good with his hands, a lot of times he's able to control the ball and still get a lot of depth. And being 6'6", right, we talked about the height, he can reach a lot of balls other people just can't. So let's see what happens here. It's pretty amazing. He gets zone 3 depth from a really, really tough and difficult position. And he forces Nadal to back up right here. We got Nadal on his back foot. Nadal's very good off his back foot, but the fact that Medvedev could neutralize a great serve with depth is incredible. Nadal takes a pretty big risk here, right? And we're kind of getting to the point now, but hits pretty close to a small target to get Medvedev running here to his left. And let's look at Medvedev again. We talked about in the last point and showed this from really difficult positions, and this is about as difficult as a position you can get. He's hitting a ball below the height of his knee, stretched out wide, right? Extremely difficult. Very easy from that position for most people to either make an error, right? Or hit a ball short, but he's incredible from these positions. So let's see what he actually does. And again, just absolutely incredible. Hand control, balance, and body control from this position. He, again, keeps pretty good balance considering the situation. And what does he come up with here? Comes up with incredible depth deep here in the back of zone 3 and gets Nadal in a kind of jammed up position, an emergency position, does counter damage and gets the air out of Nadal right there, forces an error. All right, so let's look at that point one more time real quick. Nadal here, beautiful serve placement. Again, we talked about if you can get the returner hitting the return on the other side of the hash mark from the service box that you actually placed your serve in, that's an excellent quality serve and will draw a short ball 95% of the time. Medvedev, amazing depth, Nadal, small target, and then Medvedev hits this insane cross-court shot from a very difficult position on the run, surprises Nadal, and forces him into an error. Beautiful counter. All right, so we could see in those points that Medvedev presents a lot of difficulty as a returner because of that length, right, that he has in his reach, and also the fact that he can control balls from really difficult positions. But one thing I want to talk about is his ability to mix up his depth and positioning of where he's standing as a returner. I like to kind of call this the master of illusion because he's going to give you the idea that he's going to be in one position and he's actually in another. Let's take a look at some points. All right, so in the first point right here, we've got Medvedev returning on the near side, Nadal serving on the far side. We're going ad side here, and this is why I call him the master of illusion, right? So we're going to take a look at this really quick. This is really important what he does here. Nadal goes to toss the ball, right? And our tendency is to look at what Nadal is doing, and Nadal has to look up at the ball in the toss to see where it's going. Meanwhile, let's look at what Medvedev does when Nadal does that. He does something that's really uncommon on the ATP Tour on a first serve here, or a second, but especially a first. He drops backwards and splits back, okay? So he's giving Nadal the idea here, originally with his positioning, while Nadal's tossing the ball, he's showing Nadal that he's closer to the baseline and he's more susceptible to a fast serve, right? The closer we are, a fast serve may force us to hit a short return. But while Nadal tosses the ball, and Nadal's eyes are up here, Medvedev actually splits backwards, which gives him more time to react to a first serve. So that's incredible, just tactically. The guy's playing chess on the tennis court with what he's doing with his position. He starts forward and actually splits backwards, knowing a faster serve is probably coming. So let's see the serve here. And Nadal does. Nadal cracks this serve and hits a pretty big serve. So Medvedev has more time to react. Let's see what he does. He hits a decent return here. It lands in the deeper part of zone 2. This gives Nadal a lot of time to step around. He does that, but hits short. And then Medvedev here gets the forehand, right? Definitely weaker on that side. You can see the contact point here is a little bit far back, right? But he finds really good depth here in zone 3 on this ball. Nadal does an excellent job of creating some really good depth here, right? He's trying to do some damage and just trying to get the ball deep to force Medvedev to hit short. And we can see Medvedev again in this jammed up contact position. His contact point's a little far back. And we talked about this in part 1, that he does an amazing job typically of still getting depth even when he's jammed with bad contact points. And he does it right here, right? So we see deep in zone 3, excellent job of taking Nadal's deep ball and directing it back deep. Nadal hits a short angle here to try to do some damage to Medvedev. We've seen in the last couple of return points how good Medvedev is once the point's going from these bending low, tough positions outside the alley, right? Let's see what he does here. That's incredible. That's just literally incredible that he can do this over and over again, right? So again, this guy is hunched down over here, has excellent balance, is hitting a ball from outside the alley below his knee, and he's able to take this from a terrible position and hit deep into zone 3, and this time to a small target, right? So it's small target. He gets a short ball right there against Nadal. That's exactly what he wants, right? He's completely flipped the script of what was going on, the situation. Inside in forehand, we got a little lob here from Rafa, right? A little emergency lob. Now Medvedev's on the offense, backs up a little bit, gives himself some time, lets the overhead bounce, and then finishes the point. That's amazing. All right, so the next point here, we've got Thiem serving on the deuce side, Medvedev returning on the deuce side back there, starting closer to zone 5. And we talked about on the previous point how Medvedev split step backwards to give Nadal the fake out, right? The illusion that he was going to be somewhere he wasn't. Let's see what he does here. Okay, this time he split steps forward in this point to give a different look, right? Because we know that Medvedev returns a lot of first serves from the deepest part of the court, way back in zone 5. So here he's given a completely different look. He's stretched by an excellent serve from Thiem. So look at that serve. Small target right here, excellent serve. Medvedev on the full stretch. He's able to reach this because he's 6'6", right? Pokes it in. And look at the recognition here from Thiem. He's got Medvedev stretched. He knows a weak ball's coming based on Medvedev's body position and having to reach like this. So Thiem is already moving forward and recognizing that. Excellent anticipation. Comes in, takes a swinging volley right here. But look at something really interesting up here with the speed tracker on Medvedev. From when he stretched out to hit his forehand to a couple steps later, he's moving at 12 miles an hour already. Now, I know that might not seem that fast, but he's 6'6". He's already moving that fast to recover for Thiem's shot. And look at this. This is just absolutely incredible. Medvedev reaches a top speed of 16.1 miles per hour on the dead run with a racket in his hand to retrieve Thiem's shot. That is absolutely insane speed, especially for somebody that's 6'6". Let's see that one more time. Look at the speed. 16.1 miles an hour at top speed. And then when he gets to contact, he's still moving at just over 15 miles an hour. He's moving fast, especially for a guy his height. He's moving extremely fast. So let's see what happens here. We've got an obvious lob situation with the racket face open right here, right? Comes up with an incredible lob in that situation, especially remember how fast he was moving at contact. He was still at 15 miles an hour at contact, finds the back of zone 3 to neutralize the situation here. Thiem has to back up and basically reset the point here. It's completely reset. Medvedev here with a little dinkum gives Thiem all day to load those hips and legs, right? Cranks a forehand. And you can see that thing had a lot of mustard on it because Medvedev is back here and he's crouched up and he's extremely uncomfortable. Just look at his body position, right? We know he's in an uncomfortable position because the amount of pace and spin Thiem had on that forehand. Hits the backhand short there a little bit in zone 2, but gets Thiem on his back foot. Thiem hits basically a neutral ball here. Medvedev goes for some depth and does a nice job of just getting it deep and trying to force Thiem to hit short. So he finds zone 3 depth, gets Thiem on the back foot. And team does a good job of hitting deep there. That ball definitely damaged Medvedev. And one reason we know is, number one, that contact point is back again, so we can see he's jammed up a little bit. And number two, look at how Medvedev follows through with the racket. The racket is actually open on the follow through. That's not something that we'd want to see from a player when they're hitting topspin usually, but he's doing that because he's having to push the ball and still try to get some depth. He ends up hitting it a little bit shorter here. Team moves around, rips this forehand. Again, though, when Medvedev gets in situations where he's having to defend, that's really when he's at his best. When you're pushing him wide, when you're backing him up, he just kind of goes in this emergency mode and does a great job defending. Get into a little exchange here. Really nice depth from Medvedev on this one. That forces team into the half volley here. This is something players can learn from too. When you get in these half volley positions, you got to get good at this, being able to take a ball literally off of a short hop and still try to direct it deep, okay? Or take time. So team does an amazing job of getting this ball deep, forces Medvedev here onto his back foot, uncomfortable. A little short, wide slice. There we go, look at that. So we've got the small target slice down the line. This gives Medvedev the opportunity to open it up though, because he's in a wider position. That means team has to possibly cover this or cover this. So Medvedev here hits an amazing small target. The first look that he gets, the first good look, he takes the angle and now he's got team on the dead run, okay? Team comes back, Medvedev slices to keep him moving, right? Instead of trying to crush this ball, Medvedev doesn't need to do that. He just slices it to keep team moving from one end of the court to the other here. Team takes a missile shot right here, and then Medvedev finishes with a small target. That's an absolutely insane point. It's an incredible point. And again, we talked about Medvedev's top end speed, right? This guy at one point here is moving at over 16 miles an hour, moving to a backhand lob. It's absolutely incredible. All right, so let's move on to the next point now. All right, so in this point, we've got Nadal serving on the near side. We've got Medvedev returning on the far side. He's starting in a little bit deeper position. And we've seen, right, in the first point that we looked at, he split backwards to return Nadal's serve. Then against team, he did the I'm going to move forward and return serve. Let's see what he does on this particular one here. He basically splits in place. All right, so kind of a neutral split, maybe just a hair backwards there. So again, what's he doing? He's giving a different look constantly to the server, which makes the server have to work hard. It's one of the things that makes the server guess more as to what could possibly be happening on their own serve plus one, okay? Really uncomfortable return position here. You can see he's jammed on this return, and he's hitting that late contact point, but he does a really good job with these most of the time. Pretty good aggression, gets Nadal to hit off of his back foot, a little uncomfortable. And one thing that Medvedev does really well here too is his flat backhand drive. It almost seems to skip through the court a little bit. And that skipping through the court gets guys like Nadal or anybody to kind of force themselves to slice because the ball is skipping through and they can't get under it or hit the topspin they want to hit. So that slice there though, look what it does. Medvedev's the kind of player, he wants time on his forehand to load his legs and set up an attack because he has a bigger swing. He kind of needs that time, but as soon as he gets the look, he'll take it, right? So he forced Nadal to hit this weak slice, and as soon as Nadal did that, Medvedev is blazing over there footwork-wise to try to attack with his forehand. And he does. He does an excellent job attacking here and getting Nadal into a defensive position, right? Nadal's really good from these spots, but he ends up hitting this one short in zone 2 right here. Medvedev accelerates, kind of a neutral ball. Nadal hits a slice again, and they kind of get into exchange here. Medvedev doesn't do anything with this one, hits it short. And this is a great play from Rafa. Let's see what he does, right? Medvedev has split stepped and he's moving this way. He thinks a cross-court shot's coming, but Nadal goes behind him. And that's something he did to Djokovic at the French Open too. Goes behind, small target, and then Medvedev is running over quickly to try to hit this ball, right? It's incredible he can even get to the ball. Let's see if he actually gets it in the court. And he does, right? I mean, that's incredible. Look at the position he's in. And again, Open racket face because he's just trying to get the ball in and trying to achieve depth though. He doesn't want to hit this short. And he finds a way to get this ball into zone 3 depth-wise right here, which he's just trying to neutralize Nadal's attack, right? Nadal does a really good job here just loading up. You can see based on Nadal's racket and body position, you can tell this is going down the line. He'd be rotated a little bit more with the hips here if he was going cross-court at contact. Takes down the line deep in zone 3. He's got Medvedev on the dead run again. You can see Medvedev knows the big shot's coming, so he backed up after he hit his last shot. So look at Medvedev's position here. While Nadal's going to load up, he's already split-stepping backwards, knowing he's going to be on defense, okay? He knows it's coming. He runs over, tries to maintain a good contact point, but you can see that's still jammed up into him a little bit like this. So let's see if he's able to take this and achieve depth. No. Okay, so this one, short in zone 2. Nadal goes down the line with depth again here. Really nice ball in zone 3. The only thing that could have made this better, right, is if it was more in the corner here or more in the corner there. But the depth is amazing. Off the back foot for Medvedev. Defensive position. But his hand control is so good. Look what happens, right? Deep in zone 3 from a bad spot. Short ball from Nadal there because he's got to play defense now. Medvedev has countered his depth and done counter damage and forced Nadal short in zone 1. And then Medvedev's like, hey, as soon as I get the opportunity, my feet are moving up into the court and I'm going to try to attack. Let's see what he does with the hands, right? Medvedev's hands, as we talked in part 1, when he wants to get aggressive, he tends to flatten it out. His hands go through the ball versus going over a lot of the time when he tries to drive. So let's see what this one does. That's an aggressive drive, deep in zone 3. Nadal does another hit behind. Look where Medvedev is. He's going this way, and he's more off balance than he was the first time this happened in this point, right? He's completely off balance. But he's so quick and he's so good with his feet and his hands, he still comes back and is able to hit this ball like that. It's incredible. And then he gets zone 3 depth off that into a small target, which is insane. Nadal comes up with his own magic. He doesn't even care. He's like, whatever. Zone 3 myself. Nice and deep. I'm going to destroy you with this ball. Big damage here. Medvedev is not expecting that. He's in a complete scramble back here. His contact point is definitely not what he wants in this situation, right? High deep, zone 3, counters that somehow. Counter neutralizes, which is incredible here. Nadal's backing up and away. Still finds zone 3 because his control over the ball is so good. Medvedev, again, here's that flat drive we talked about, right? And how he forces Nadal to slice. And when he forces him to slice, it gives him the opportunity to load the forehand. It gives him the time. Take that big swing. He's loaded up right here. Let's see what he does with this. Small target winner. All right, so we're just seeing some absolutely crazy things from Medvedev there. One of the things that I really like, though, right, is he changed his return position over and over again. He's, splitting backwards. He's splitting into a neutral position, or he's moving forwards on the return to mix up what the server sees and where the server expects him to be in the point, right? So he's kind of playing chess and playing mind games with you. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's another layer of depth on his return game. Let's move on to the last 2 points now and look at his incredible balance from difficult positions. All right, so let's look at the first point now. We've got Medvedev on the near side returning and Nadal on the far side serving. Let's see what happens here. Big missile to the body. Big flat one right to the body. But what Medvedev does here, look at how quick. Did you see how fast that happens? How fast he gets his racket back and ready to strike, okay? He sees the pace is coming. He splits forward and he shortens it up quick and just does damage right here. Big damage down the line. And one thing I want you to know too about down the line balls and doing damage and hurting your opponents, we want depth in most situations, but when your opponent's on one side of the court and you go down the line, it's easier to damage them because they're moving from one side of the court over to the other. You don't have to have depth to damage somebody when you go down the line if they're on the other side of the court, okay? Having the depth would be awesome, but you can still easily hurt somebody going down the line with some pace not having great depth, okay? And he does that right there. Nadal is in a complete scramble, is not expecting this. Running, nice little squash shot. Nadal's an amazing job just of getting that nice and low and forcing Medvedev into this slice, right? Look at the contact point there. Medvedev, again, 6'6", gets himself down and is hitting a ball below his knee height. Kind of hits this little drop shot though. Not the best shot from that position. Nadal comes up. Really nice approach shot here from Rafa. And what I mean by that is it could definitely be deeper, but it's knifing. And again, look at Medvedev's contact point and how low it is. He's definitely below the knee at contact. That's incredible though. We're talking about what he can do from really difficult positions and just bunts this with his hands. And look at this. He finds a way to stretch Nadal and gets him hitting the ball on the other side, fully stretched below his knee. Nadal pops it up, and Medvedev finishes. That's incredible. Let's go back for 1 second a little bit, though. Look at the hands here, the control of the hands and the body and the balance and just a little flick. He doesn't even follow through. His point, you know, we're always teaching people, you gotta follow through, you gotta do this. In certain situations, you don't have time or that's not the proper thing to do. Here for Medvedev, he's making an athletic play. He's bunting and controlling with the hands because he's just trying to get this low cross court. It's effective, and you can see too, Medvedev knows it's low and it's dipping, and he's got him on the stretch that he can expect a short ball, so he's sprinting in. His anticipation skills are unbelievable. He knows exactly what's going to happen based on what he just did. Sprints in, and again, look at how fast this guy is moving. Top speed. 16.5 miles an hour, 17. Oh, you just keep going. 17.3 miles an hour to get to this ball. That's fast, guys. That's crazy fast. Top speed, 17.3 miles an hour on his way to that shot. And then finishes. The guy is a cheetah at 6'6". All right, so let's look at the final point real quick. We've got team serving on the far side, Medvedev returning on the near side here. Great serve from team out wide. Medvedev has kind of this awkward, uncomfortable contact point again, right? But hits a pretty big return. It's got a lot of pace on it. It's short in zone 2. If it was deeper, it'd be even more effective. But look at team, he's backing up because of how fast that return was. He got him on his back foot right away. Team does an excellent job. Look at that. Just rolls up on basically, again, what's almost a half volley and hits it deep in zone 3. Medvedev, we talked about how fast and his top speed. He's at 14.5 miles an hour moving to this backhand. We've seen him go over 17 at 6'6". But look at that. He adjusts and he does a very good job again, sinking his hips down and getting his body down and keeping balance, okay? And then using the hands and using the arms to control. Let's see what he does here, though. Incredible. He's damaged here and counter neutralizes here from a difficult position. He's got team backing up pretty far, and team doesn't want to be backing up like that. So he backs up, inside in, crushes that. That does damage. Look at Medvedev. Medvedev's not even looking probably at the ball at this point. He's looking over here. He's just running so fast to get to these balls. Kind of an emergency mode. Team has no idea where he's hitting the ball because look at Medvedev. He's not even facing him at this point at contact, right? He's completely sideways. It's a really difficult contact point and position. But let's see what happens. Comes up with, again, we talked about how good this guy is from just crazy positions, right? Great angle there and does counter damage to team. He's got team on the dead run. Look at team. He's running over. He gets up to over 12 miles an hour on the run to this and ends up hitting that long. All right. So amazing counter here from a bullet from team. An excellent shot. You know, and he's moving as fast as he is. So he's moving over 13 miles an hour, hitting a forehand on the run while being in a really awful position, and then comes up with this angle to do counter damage to team, and then team feels the necessity to go for more because he can't get a ball by the guy, right? All right, so that wraps it up for part 2 of our tactical analysis of Daniil Medvedev's game. If you saw something that we didn't cover and you want to see us talk about it, drop a comment in the comment section below. If you felt like you learned something today, make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. I'm Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net. We'll see you next time.